Welcome back, viewers, to another exciting episode of Sports Central. To all my loyal viewers, thanks for tuning in again, and to any newcomers, this is Sports Central, the only weekly Warwick County sports recap episode on the internet. So we'll get right to business this week with some football action. We're going to start with the only bad news for Warwick County teams on Friday. The Tecumseh Braves lost to West Washington 35-6. Tecumseh got up early in the game 6-0 on an Adam Grandin touchdown pass to Seth Gunn. But then the Senators came back with 35 straight points to take away the win. It was 7-6 at halftime. West Washington was ahead. And then the second half was all Senators as they scored 4 touchdowns to take the 35-6 victory. Coming up on Friday, the Braves are back at home at Linville Elementary School at Braves Field. They will take on the Springs Valley Blackhawks at 6:30 on Friday. Springs Valley is 3-3 on the year, and the two teams share a familiar opponent, the West Washington Senators. The Senators also beat Springs Valley 38-6, so just based on those scores, this Tecumseh Springs Valley game should be a pretty competitive game. And getting to the good news in the Warwick County football action on Friday night, Boonville finally snapped a 4-game losing streak. The Pioneers opened up their season with a 23 win over Washington and then lost 4 straight games. Things weren't looking good at Boonville. Kids were pretty down on themselves, but they bounced back very nicely on Friday. They stomped Mount Vernon 36-13 at Mount Vernon during their homecoming, so it was just a great win for Boonville. They were up 22-0 at one point in the first half, just totally dominated that game, and they were led by running back Andrew Arriago, who had 20 carries for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns, which are all pretty impressive numbers. Coach Blankenship pretty much said he ran like a man possessed, so it was a good game for Andrew, leading the Pioneers to victory. Boonville is back at home on Friday. It's their homecoming night against the Princeton Tigers, beginning at 7 p.m. Princeton, much improved over their last few years. They snapped a 29-game losing streak, their first game of the year this year, and they opened up the season 3-0 before dropping their next 3 games, so they are now sitting at 3-3. These two teams have faced 3 common opponents. They've both beaten Washington. Princeton beat them 50-32, and both of them have lost to Gibson Southern and Jasper. The Tigers lost to Gibson Southern 50-21, and Jasper beat Princeton 48-14. And lastly, the final team in the Warwick County football was the Castle Knights, and they're still just steamrolling teams. North was their victim on Friday. Castle beat them 42-7. The Knights, kind of a shaky game, really. They had 3 turnovers. Their offense looked just a little bit out of sync, and they're still able to win 42-7, which is a pretty good sign for Castle football fans. Usually the Knights are led by their passing attack with Mitch Gillis and their trio of receivers, but running back Andrew Finch led the way on Friday. The junior had 195 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Was really their only reliable source of offense on Friday night. Really carried the Knights to that win. And coming up on Friday for Castle, they're at home, friendly confines in Paradise. And it's the proverbial trap game for the Knights. They're facing Harrison, who's 0-6, at 7 p.m. on Friday. But looming largely next weekend is pretty much the best game in Southern Indiana football. Castle versus Mater Dei, who's also undefeated like the Knights. But as I said, Castle's got to get by Harrison first. And although the Warriors are 0-6, they are pretty dangerous. Aaron Killebrew plays running back, quarterback, receiver, punt returner, kick returner, does everything for them. He's a very dynamic, dangerous player who's being recruited by some pretty high-level colleges. And Harrison can score some points. They've scored over 30 points twice this year, and they scored over 50 points in a 52-7 win to open the season, but that win was forfeited by an ineligible player. So they can score some points. So if Castle's not ready for the Warriors on Friday, they might be surprised a little bit. In another sports news, the soccer sectionals were announced yesterday. Both boys and girls, Boonville and Castle, are in the same sectional in both sports. We'll start with the boys. It's hosted at Boonville at the middle school, and it's a very tough draw for the Pioneers. There's 4 really good teams in that sectional: North, Castle, Washington, and Boonville. And if the Pioneers are going to win sectional, they have to beat all 3 of the others. Boonville opens sectional the play-in game against Washington. If they win that, they'll play Castle, and if they win that, they'll play the winner of North and Central, likely going to be North. So it's a tough road for Boonville and for Castle, really, because they're going to have to beat 2 of the 4 top teams in that sectional. That sectional gets underway on Monday with that Boonville-Washington game at 6. The semifinals will then be Wednesday at 5 and 7, and then the final will be at 5 o'clock on Saturday. In the girls sectional at Castle, Castle and Boonville face each other in the first game of the sectional on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. The winner of that will face North, and then the winner of that game will face the winner of Central and Washington. Those semifinal games are at 5 and 7 on Thursday, with the final game at noon on Saturday. Castle and North are probably the 2 favorites in that sectional, so that semifinal game, if Castle gets by Boonville, is likely going to decide that sectional. North beat Castle in the sectional final last year, but Castle came back early on this year and beat North 3-0, so that should be a pretty exciting game. And to follow up on the girls' golf action, the Castle Lady Knights are in the state tournament this Friday and Saturday. It's their 2nd straight appearance. And the Knights are led by Kayla Catter-Henry, who finished 3rd in the state last year individually. She's trying for an individual state title, and the Knights are hoping to challenge for the state championship as a team as well. So as always, viewers, I appreciate your views and tuning in. Make sure you check it out next Wednesday and every Wednesday afternoon to find out all the exciting sports action around Warwick County. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
I had a rough day, but that's life.